Let us take a look at more examples. So we have just only explained what we have here. So we can see the name of the compound is called propyl ethanoate. But for clarity of purpose, let us take a look at the names of more esters and get to understand how they are named. Now, we have the first ester here, ethyl methanoate. Ethyl methanoate. Let us get to write it on this whiteboard. Let us take a look at a white screen to understand how to name that compound. We're just going to make it very, very brief, and I assure you, you will get to understand now. So let's take a look at this. So I have a compound ethyl propanoate. Why and how is this compound called ethyl methanoate? Let us get to understand why it is called ethyl methanoate, and that will help us to name other compounds. So we have H, C, O, O, C, H, H, C, H, H, H. Okay, looking at the compound, this is called ethyl methanoate. How is it ethyl methanoate? Let us rewrite it as a condensed formula. As a condensed formula, it will be HCOO CH2CH3. I want to believe this is clear now. Now, how do we name this compound, or how are esters named? Esters are named first by naming this part. This is the R prime part. This is the first part we ought to name, followed by what we're having this part. This is the R2. This R1, the R prime, and the R. So, having seen that, now let us take our naming. So this is the second part of the naming. Now, after the COO, we have two carbon atoms. Carbon A, carbon B. After the COO, there are two carbon atoms. So, to understand how to name an ester, you have to say, after the COO, there are two carbon atoms. Since there are two carbon atoms, then it means that that compound is earth. Is earth. Since it is earth, it has lost one hydrogen, so it is going to be ethyl. Ethyl, because this is C2H5, and there is a compound called C2H6, which is ethane, but this is C2H5, so it means it has lost one hydrogen atom, and that is why it's no longer going to be ethane, but ethyl. So we simply say that is ethyl. Since it is ethyl, after naming this part of alkyl that comes after COO, we come back to the COO part. How many carbon atoms do we have there? It is one carbon atom. One carbon atom is at the COO part. So it's going to be meth. Meth. Since it is meth, the rule says we name the alkyl part, followed by the acidic part, and then we end it with an OH. So since we've named this part as ethyl, and we've named the other part before the COO part is one carbon atom, which is meth, The part after COO is 2 carbon atoms, which is ethyl. Now we have to end it with OH. OH. So this is going to be, this is now going to be methanol OH. This is how to name our compound. So we have, let's write it very well, methanoate. So this is how to write the name of any ester. So the right name of the compound is ethyl methanoate. The most important thing when you're naming an ester is to check for the number of carbon atoms after the COO. Then you return back to the part of the COO and check how many carbon atoms do I have there. So this determines how the naming will go. And then you have to end with OH. With OH. So let us take another example. Let us look at the other example. The next example is ethyl ethanoate. Ethyl ethanoate. So how is this compound ethyl ethanoate? Let us take a look at that. First and foremost, let us draw the structure of ethyl ethanoate. The structure is H. The structure is H, C, H, H, C, okay, we have C, double bond O, O, C, C, H, H, H. So this is the structure of ethyl ethanoate. They said the structure is ethyl ethanoate. So how do we know this is ethyl ethanoate? First, let us take a look at the condensed formula. It will help us to understand how to name an ester. The condensed formula of this compound is CH3 COO CH2 CH3. This is the condensed formula. So how do we know the name of the compound? To know the name of this compound is to now ask ourselves, how many carbon atoms can we see after COO? There are 2 carbon atoms after COO. So automatically that is ethyl. That is ethyl because it has lost 1 hydrogen. In forming an ester, 1 hydrogen must be lost from the alkyl part. So this is ethyl. Since it is ethyl, not ethane, because we have 2 carbon atoms as ethane if we are talking about alkane families. If we are talking about alkane family, 2 carbon atoms will be ethane. But we ought also to remember that ethane is C2H6, but this is C2H5. So it implies that 1 hydrogen has been lost. And we said when alkanes loses 1 hydrogen, it forms a new compound called alkyl. And alkyl compounds are compounds with the loss of 1 hydrogen. And they are named by replacing the ANE in alkanes with YL. So it will be YL. So the name of this compound is ethyl. Now, at the COO part of the compound, how many carbon atoms can we find there? Is 2 carbon atoms. So it is also going to be eth. Instead of ethane, instead of ethane, the rule says we end with weight. So this is going to be weight. So combining the name of the compound, we have it as ethyl ethanoate. Ethyl ethanoate, and that is why the compound is ethyl ethanoate. Let's take a look at another example. We have another compound, methyl pentanoate. Methyl pentanoate. Why is this compound methyl pentanoate? Let us take a look at why it is methyl pentanoate. So, for methyl pentanoate, we have the structure as, we have it as CH3, CH2. It is easier because it has been given to us as condensed formula. CH2, CO, O, CH3. Looking at the compound above, we ought to ask ourselves, let us rewrite it now as CH3, CH2, 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 COO, CH3. This is more condensed. So, we ought to ask ourselves, after COO, how many carbon atoms do we see? There are just one carbon atom after COO. So, that is met. So, that is methyl. Methyl. Now, from COO backward, how many carbon atoms do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is pent. It ought to be pentane. It ought to be pentane. But the E will be replaced with weight. The E ought to be replaced with weight. That is it. So we end with weight. So having seen that, the name is what? The name is going to be, let's take that down very well. The name, instead of ending with pentane, is going to be weight. So to combine the name, we have it as methyl pentanoate. This is how to name an ester, methyl pentanoate. So we ought to ask ourselves, when you're given a compound that is an ester, you ought to check how many carbon atoms can we get after the COO, and then how many carbon atoms can we see from the COO backwards. So when you are able to identify that, you will name any ester. Let's take a look at another example. So the next is ethyl propanoate. Now let's get to understand why this compound is called ethyl propanoate. Looking at the compound, the structure is CH3, CH2, C, double bond O, O, CH2, and CH3. So, why is the compound called ethyl propanoate? Let us get to understand this vividly. To understand why it is ethyl propanoate, let us get to write the condensed formula as we have always been doing. So it can help us understand very well how to name the compound. So we have our condensed formula written. Now, like we said, we'll have to look at the number of carbon atoms after COO. And the number of carbon atoms there are 2. So that gives us ethyl. Ethyl. And how many carbon atoms can we see from COO backwards? There are 3 carbon atoms, and that is prop. So that is going to give us propane for 3 carbon atoms. But because we've said that the E will be replaced with OH, the E will be replaced with OH, so that actually becomes propanoate. And that is why the name of the compound, as we can see, is ethyl propanoate. So this is how to name our ester. Let's take a look at another example, as we can see. Now, this is given to us. What is the name? We don't know the name, so we are going to go ahead to pen down this structure and then provide the name. But before we do so, I would like you students to go ahead of me and attempt to give the name. Can you do that? Okay, while I write the structure, I would like you to attempt giving the name. Good. So we have this, and that, CH2, CH2, and CH3. Good. So, like we have seen before, what is the name of the compound? We don't know. So how do we go about providing the name of this ester? It is better to write the condensed formula. CH3, COO, CH2, CH2, and CH3. So, like we've said, we are going to ask ourselves how many carbon atoms are there after COO. There are 3 carbon atoms after COO. So that automatically, let's take that away. Let's take this away. So we have we have 3. And now we have there are 3 carbon atoms after COO. So that automatically becomes propyl. And from COO backwards, there are 2 carbon atoms, and that is ethane. But because the E will be replaced by OH, so taking off our E, we'll replace our E with OH. So the name of the compound is propyl ethanoate. And that is how to name an ester. So with this, I would like to challenge you students with the following compounds. I would like to challenge you with the following compounds. Now you can go ahead, attempt the name of these following esters, as they will help you to improve in your IUPAC nomenclature.